Hi, welcome to XReality podcast. I'm the host, Dominic Wu, and beside me is my guest, Dan Kuykendall. Hi, Dan. Could you share a little bit about your background with us?
Hi, Dominique. I've spent most of my career in cybersecurity since the late 90s, early 2000s. I was really focused on cybersecurity. For most of the 2000s, I've been focused on web security or application security, and had built a company and sold it to kind of a larger cybersecurity company called Rapid7, and spent 8 years there building um, a really cool product uh, and really kind of being part of the leaders in the application security space. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, but a lot of fun, and learned a lot over that, over 25-year uh, career in cybersecurity, on really building products and learning how to mature an industry. Starting back at that time, it wasn't even really called cybersecurity. It was just like hacking, right? And and then turned into computer security at some point, network security, and eventually we got the cybersecurity name. And the industry had a lot of growing to do. It was really a lot of um, like hackers in the funnest sense of the word. Like, people were just experimenting because they were passionate about this topic, and so saw that a lot, and it's a very strong parallel with what I see in the VR space. There's a lot of people that are really passionate about the space, and it's still very much maturing, especially on the business side. And there's a lot of parallels. So it's been an interesting journey.
Wow. So you mentioned about cybersecurity. My first question is that what's the the cybersecurity should do in the AI era? Because we know that AI, right? Because of AI, that a lot of personal data or a lot of things. For example, right now you mentioned XR. A lot of new AR glasses is coming, right? And it's already coming yesterday. I think I don't know, yesterday or a few days ago, Meta just dropped or opened the developer toolkit for the Radeon AI glass, right? Not I didn't see the AR part, but I saw the AI. But I believe pretty soon, AR part or later on Orion, when Orion launch, we can see more of data in the real world being, I don't know, being absorbed or being, like a seen in, through those like AI AR glasses. So, what do you see that cybersecurity should be reinforced, or should we should make sure those parts are being taken care of for the era AI era?
Yeah, so it's a broad topic, and I'm still highly connected in the cybersecurity space. Uh, the I would say there's a bunch of initiatives going on. So, like, there are folks that are doing testing. There was some interesting tests that were like prompt engineering or prompt injection, I should say. Uh, and this is kind of the idea that you can plant um, instructions to AI on websites, and then when people do certain searches, part of it's getting content from the website that's then affecting the output. Um, and there's some of that's going on. So, like, some people are actually doing malicious attacks. We're seeing already some attackers using AI to improve automation, to make their um, like phishing attacks more realistic. There's a lot of stuff going on that cybersecurity is trying to look at and address. It's but it's wide open right now. The cybersecurity industry is uh, really on its heels. It's really behind on addressing AI, and there are some really good folks working on it. I think the Cloud Security Alliance spun out a AI Security Alliance that one of my buddies, Caleb Sema, is part of, and they're doing a lot of good work trying to find the things to address each of these different AI companies. Most of them have their own like um, security or protection units that are also trying to understand and test. I think Anthropic has been doing some really interesting testing. So there's a lot. It's a broad topic. How it affects the AR space, I
Mm.
think the biggest challenge is going to be around privacy,
Oh,
right? Because these cameras are um, now on the glasses and
mm.
it's streaming data to the cloud, which then needs to get processed. And um, who knows what you're going to end up seeing on somebody's glasses that they're wearing as they're walking around, even their own house, given the lay of the land inside your home, all these things. There's a lot to be figured out that is, I think right now we're rushing very much like in the internet in the early days, right? In the internet of the 90s, there was a rush to get websites out, and that's why they were so insecure and why we were hacking them left and right. Uh, that's gotten better over the years, but there's still some fundamental things that are broken and that can almost never be fixed. And I'm a little concerned that that's going to be the case with AI. There's going to be some fundamental parts that we're never really going to get to be as secure as we'd like. But, you're chasing um, other motivations, right? They're building with their own motivations. And so slowing down to make sure it's all perfectly secure and all the privacy is resolved, that's not going to happen. So, but it's a broad topic, really.
Yeah, yeah. So recently I read some newses. One of it I feel really happy about is Meta had a partnership with some major like a news, such as like a New York Times or some other interesting like a top tier news. I feel really happy. The reason why is because, oh, finally those content. I mean, I agree with OpenAI. They have the announcement that, hey, AI deserve to learn. AI deserve to get educated, by all the good data. But I think yes, I agree with that. You need to train AI with good data, but you have to pay. Not like a scrapping everything from the internet. And I remember one of the interview from like their CTO, the OpenAI CTO. During that time, the woman's still there. Yeah, and when the host asked the CTO that, "Are you guys using YouTube's data to train your bot?" And the woman just very vaguely said that we use things currently public. So which is like a yes. So yeah, so I think, yeah, those types of things, for example, right now, it seems like there's no regulation and especially the policy, right? It seems like
Yeah.
the policy is trying to be super open for those elites to get more access to all the data that yeah, I can feel that. So as for cybersecurity is probably, yeah, just like you said, it's behind, same as education. Education is totally behind in this AI era. But I think you see like slowly we start seeing the problem. And when we see the problem, we couldn't do the prevention because we don't have enough wisdom to know what will happen. And so we just let it happen and we fix it on the way. So yeah, so I feel like whoever goes very fast can always get advantage of breaking the laws. Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean there are no regulations. So that's its own topic around content creators and what rights do they have over their content that's been posted on the internet and all, and even behind some paywalls and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a lot of broad topics there. AI is definitely shaking things up. But
yes.
we went through this before. We had the same issues or similar issues on the internet early days when like Napster came out and people were pirating music and musicians were freaking out and they had to figure out what are the rules, what's the laws, um, who owns what, all. So it's we've been through this before. We'll figure it out, but it does usually lawmakers kind of have to trail a little behind, otherwise they could stifle innovation too much. So it's a tough balance. It's a tough balance.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And speak of music, I recently spoke to one of the composer. And I shared the concern, and he mentioned that actually his work was he got more work in the AI era, and I was like, what? Because a lot of you see like in Hollywood, right? A lot of actor, I saw a lot of, for example, models, right? They are creating like a AI fake models and influencers for the branding, and also nano bananas. You see like I my major was graphics back in 2008, right? 2008. And I started realize that, wow, whatever I learned in the past is already pretty much being automated. So I asked him like, why do you find how do you find the opportunity as a composer in this AI era? He said that yeah, a lot of people couldn't really text prompt to the music that they are looking for, and they have budget. So they ask him, and AI really helps him to speed up the process. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And I started realize that, oh, you know what? I was working on one of the VR game, and I find out that I want this music to stop in a certain time frame. Yeah, for example, like I have a trailer. I want to have like a 90 second, really nice, kind of like a length trailer. But the Suno, when Suno generate 2 minutes. And around that time, I find out there's like a continuing things that I couldn't cut. And I was like, wow, if I know how to do that MIDI, or, if I can do things, and I keep prompting and it just never work. So I think, yeah. And the musician just said that I can make it work, but you cannot. So that's, yeah. And I said, yes, yes. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities. For example, like a lot of text prompt. If you don't have the background of that industry, you couldn't modify really accurate. You couldn't do the premium work. We, for me, I just can do the kind of pretty good, above the average, but the best, like the premium work. I feel like, wow, that requires the experts. So there is still
Yeah.
some opportunities. Yeah.
And we see the same thing on the development side. I see like some of these junior developers that are coming up that think they can build anything with AI. What you find out very quickly is if you don't understand what the code that's being produced by the AI is doing, your ability to really debug it is a real problem, because there's times where AI will be like, oh, okay, yeah, this code doesn't work, so I'm just going to delete it all. It's like, no, that's not what I wanted. I want to fix it. So in the hands of a good, experienced developer that knows how to write their own code, AI can help you accelerate. But if you don't have real development experience, like don't think you're going to use AI to build your product, because you may be able to build a very simple prototype, but anything beyond that is just going to become a mess very quickly if you can't tell AI, no, I don't want you to do this because you're going to do this, is going to break that.
Yeah.
We got to be very specific, and you got to review the code carefully. If you're not doing that, you're going to create security issues and tons of bugs,
Yeah.
and eventually your code will just collapse.
Yeah.
So it's very similar. It's having skills and experience still matters,
Yeah.
and it will continue to still matter.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same as education though, because I agree with you because right now I'm working closely with a backend developer. And then I mean, I don't know backend. So I remember I saw a kind of like a image of like a house building on like a really messy, foundation versus a house building on very solid foundation, and one set vibe code, one set is experts create. And I asked the backend developer, and I said, "Do you agree with this?" He said that not 100%, but he said experts with vibe coding will be super powerful because, for example, right now we are working on the logging process authentication. He said that, look at my prompt. I know exactly what to do. So when I wrote the prompt, I tell it what to do. It's more like I am about to do all this, but I just write it down for AI to automate for me. But for beginner like me, I will say create a login process super vague, and AI will go everywhere. So that's the difference between junior or no idea what to do person versus a senior. Senior can describe. It's just like I supposed to do this. I know exactly what to do. I just let AI do it. So yeah, so just like echoing what you said, that expert can get a lot of benefits from this.
Yeah, yeah. So it's opening up the opportunity to do more quickly, but you still need skills. So
Yeah, yeah. And for example, like in education era, we always like because you know education, right? Before you need to memorize for coding, right? You need to like just code on your own. So use your memory, use everything you know. But now with AI, a lot of professors start. I saw a lot of interesting like extreme, like usually in education now we have three tiers. One is no AI, one is somehow allow AI, and the other part is open to AI. So students, I find out that with no AI, they force to memorize everything from their from their brain, but they progress very slow. But the one with open, using AI, a lot of students sometimes doesn't really know what to do. So yeah. So what do you think of, like, for example, in learning coding, do you think for junior, do you think the education need to open, like what types of AI policy would be great?
yeah, it's I've had some of this debate with some of my peers, and I go back and forth a little bit on it because um, the reality is the developers are going to they need to know how to use AI tools,
Hmm.
but they still need the fundamentals first. So I think you should require somebody to build some initial apps, without any AI tools, so you can start understanding the fundamentals, understand objects and relationships between classes and inheritance and all this stuff. You got to kind of build some of that out and understand it yourself. But eventually, you got to let them build, and then they should be required to go back and answer. Like the teacher should be able to go look at the code and say, "Tell me what this piece does right here, and how does this relate to the rest?" And if they don't understand how these pieces all are working together, then they're not learning. So it's easy enough to go back and quiz. I think, you could really have somebody dive in, force them to walk you through the code and exactly what's happening, even if it was generated by AI, as long as they comprehend what it's doing and how to debug it. And so the teacher can say, like, what happens if this doesn't work? What's it going to do? And they can answer these questions, then that's fine. You're learning.
Mm, I see. So you agree with like you need some certain of foundation, understand what to do, and then open to AI because eventually junior need to insert some AI. And I agree with you that some students, for example, they don't have any ideas about what to do. Actually, they mess up the entire thing. It's like you use AI is just so powerful and you don't even know what to do and you just mess up the whole thing. So yeah, so I think you need to have some certain foundations and later on you can work out more. Yeah. So yeah, so um um yeah, and what's your journey of being where you are today? You mentioned about some part, for example, like the cybersecurity. But before that, do you major in cybersecurity or what's your journey? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, getting started, so this was, no, there was no schooling. I was a high school dropout, moved out when I was 16 and just started working. Um, and, and so I had some bit of free time and I would go hang out at, the local Radio Shack, and they had their Tandy computers. And that's actually where I started playing with, like, having more hands on. Cause actually in high school, for the couple years I was there, um, we had a computer class and I was really good at it.
Mm.
Um, but there was only one and you couldn't retake the class. And so, even that one, I got kind of kicked out of it because I was messing with the floppy disk. and erase the data. And the teacher was freaking out. And I'm like, just give me another one and I'll copy from this floppy to that floppy. I can put two floppy drives on the same computer and I can copy it. And they're like, no, that's not how it works. I'm like, yeah, that is how it works. And like the teacher did not understand. You could actually like literally just copy a floppy disk. So there was some magic to the floppy. Like, no, it's a little scotch tape over this thing. I'm good. And and so when I was out of that class, I was like, there's no more reason for me to be in high school. I had nothing, no other interests besides being like focusing on tech. And and so eventually I got a computer of my own and kind of became like the local, computer whiz kid that would go help everybody. Eventually started charging people for it. Um, and decided to kind of go into that full time and really was just really blessed. I ended up at UCLA in an AV job, like an audio video. So I was like setting up projectors and microphones for traveling professors. And and I got placed in the office right next door to the Unix admin of UCLA.
Wow.
And that guy taught me a ton. He really showed me a lot of stuff. I also there was like this is back in the day of BBSs, and the BBS admin to the BBS I would use locally.
Wow.
Uh, he ended up letting me go help him out, and so I learned from him, and I got involved in Linux really, really early.
Wow.
And so because I needed to set up a DNS server for the BBS to like start bridging to the internet, and so I just kind of got in there and learned, and it was interesting because with open source, with Linux, um, and Bind, and we also were trying to do some email stuff. What I found is like I had no formal training, so what I would do is I would go to the developers of these different projects because their documentation generally sucked, and so I would go to them and ask them like, hey, if you'll answer my questions, I'll write your documentation.
Oh,
And so I was
that's
writing
great. That's a good deal.
yeah, I was writing man pages for all these major projects, um, like the Qmail and Vmail, some bind documentation, some Linux documentation for RPMs, and I was writing some of these documentations and really getting details from the developers. Uh, and then I decided to start writing my own projects. And so I was doing a lot of open source work, and that's really how I learned programming was reading other people's code and then building a project that I thought was interesting to build. And so I started building and forced me to learn and solve problems. Got a whole team together. We had a major open source project that had around 35 developers working on this thing at one point. Uh, and and really kind of became a pretty solid developer of my own, right? And then from there, cybersecurity was really kind of natural because I had learned backwards. And so most people learn how to do things and how to use the computer the way it was meant to be used. I kind of always questioned everything foundationally. And so I had seen so much code from like major projects that was totally broken. Um, the only one that was really secure was Qmail, and Dan Bernstein, who had created that, like fully understood like modularizing your product, and each component doesn't trust the other, and like he knew all that stuff way back in the 90s and early 2000s. He was I don't know how he learned it, but he knew that's the way to build secure code.
Oh.
I didn't see anybody else doing that, and started seeing the weaknesses because of it. So that kind of like led me into cybersecurity. I was always like, oh, I know how to break these apps because I've seen so much code, seen so much open source, um, and and commercial products had all the same problems. Even though you didn't have their source code, they all had the same fundamental issues. So, so yeah, it was a fun journey, kind of getting my way in, and was just kind of blessed being in the right place at the right time in many cases, like being at UCLA. Then I ended up randomly getting this job at Foundstone, which ended up being one of the pioneering cybersecurity companies in the industry, and got to meet a ton of their amazing people. And so rode some of their coattails for a while as I built my own, right? And so yeah, it was a fun journey.
Wow.
Eventually, eventually getting into VR was kind of an interesting pivot. Uh, I had sold my company uh, to Rapid 7 and was doing some stuff there. And I ran into this guy at church. He was wearing a shirt with a VR company name, and yeah, and and so I went up to him, I'm like, "Hey, what's this Springboard VR do?" And and so he told me, and this was Brad Scoggin, the CEO of Arbor XR. They were originally called Springboard, and so I ran into him, talked to him. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's a company I'm one of the founders of," and decided to invest
Hmm.
in Arbor,
Wow.
and um, and so really enjoyed following their journey
Hmm.
as an investor and advisor.
Hmm.
Um, but I kept seeing that one of the problems is that the VR space was doing a lot of the same problems that cybersecurity was doing in the early days, is that we had our data very siloed. Well, at first we weren't really collecting that much data. And then when we did, it was kept in silos. And and so those things are, and watching that is what led me to creating InformXR. And I'll pause there, but that's kind of how I got there. I was still doing cybersecurity, but then in 23 I decided I want to go solve this VR data problem, and so I jumped into that. So that's how I kind of made the jump over.
Yeah, and I think one of the VR problem is that, for example, I recently onboarding a professor, getting into because I developed VR app, like the biology app for a VR professor. And the VR professor, the professor hasn't used VR. She just purchased the VR headset Quest 3 during the Cyber Monday, Cyber Friday, you know
Yeah,
yeah, the Black Friday. So I was like, wow, this is like it's a great opportunity to know how to onboard a professor, right? And it took me so long, and I keep apologize because before I worked for Meta, and I know how bad it is for the UX UI flow, and because everybody work in silo, every team we work like it's too many teams, and then everybody sometimes doesn't really talk to each other, and we all it's because I think probably of the layoff types of culture. Everybody are afraid and trying to make their feature look so prominent. And imagine every button is trying to grab attention, right? That's how, and you can see the metrics, right? And we need to make sure our little silo looks good. But overall, it's just everybody's, all the UI is yelling, right? And not really collaborate really well. So that's also the thing. I knew it when I worked there, and then I just realized, wow, this onboarding process is so bad. Why? Because when I launch the to the Meta VR platform, right? Right now they use like a Meta one, like all the accounts need to merge into one, right? And then at the beginning, the professor use the personal account, created that one. And then the phone one is another one. And then the one that I add to RC, release channel is another one. And it was like we couldn't find what to do. Why I sent you, I invite you as a user. Why you couldn't even get in? What's going on? And I was like, we were trying to figure it out. And I was like going to search during the time when met. It took us 30 minutes to figure out, oh, the account was different. Okay, let's create that. And then second, when I start seeing her headset, I find out why the UI is different. And where's the where is the if you use the Meta like a undocumented or something, like a not on the store, the
yeah,
the
yeah.
private link.
The side loaded or whatever,
Yeah,
or
whatever.
test flight.
Yeah, they are trying to hide it in a very hard to find. And I was like, hey, for the user testing, why you make it so hard? And we were trying to figure it out. And the UI, it seems like Meta used the different UI from the new UI. They have a new release. And the professor using the new one. And I was like, I haven't seen this. And we couldn't even get into a lot of icons. And I was like, hey, and later on, I was using SideQuest. I was thinking about, yeah, SideQuest probably is better, but SideQuest, how to install it is like a hacker's way. It's like, oh, you need to do something and you still need to find that undocument, like uncategorized things, right? And there's none in the new UI. And I was like, wow. And you need to, toggle the developer mode on your phone. That is another challenge for a user who hasn't touched any, developer tools. I was like, why? First, my question is why a user needs to create a developer account and also toggle the developer mode to be a user. And that's so I was like, hey, and the user is not even developer, and it's just create a tons of misunderstanding. And also, she asked me, "What's the casting page?" And I was like, "Yeah, Meta didn't even put anywhere like casting page. You need to be a developer in order to kind of like trying to type from your memory where is the casting page." So I have a lot of complaint about the onboarding for somebody who just want to do user testing and suffer. And we need to book another meeting just to finish onboarding. And it's supposed to be really easy. And I totally understand that your meaning of silo. It means that everything's disconnected. The Meta assume that everybody's developer, but it's not. So that's why also make everything overly complicated. Yeah.
Well, I think that's where like Arbor, as a company, that's where the device management was really critical. We saw a lot of that in the beginning, right? They were seeing that when they originally started, they were doing this for arcades, the VR arcades,
Yeah.
but then the pivot to business and the rebranding to Arbor, um, that's a lot of the friction they were trying to resolve,
Hmm.
is to make it very easy for, for content developers to be able to give content to their customers and for their customers to manage multiple headsets. Because that professor has one headset right now.
Yeah.
They'll sort through all of the challenges, but pardon me, when they want to scale up, all of a sudden this becomes a real problem, right?
Yeah.
Doing that over and over and over again, not okay.
Yeah.
So the device management really helps that, right? So the device management piece makes it easy for you to switch that over to business use, so it's not tied to a personal account.
Yeah.
And then you could see all of your headsets. You got hundreds of them. You can manage them all in one place and push software, make sure they all have the right version of all the different pieces of software that they need, all that stuff through the device management. And then the piece that I was really focusing on was the next step. Okay, you got all this usage. Um, what are you going to do with the data? How are you
Yeah.
going to collect data? How are you going to know what the learner is doing in the headset and track it in the places you track everything else? Pardon me for a second.
Yeah. No worries.
So, for example, we have the same thing in cybersecurity. In the beginning, um, what we used to do is we would have like a security report. Okay. And so we'd run scans and find all these vulnerabilities. Um, and so we have this like security portal in a lot of cases. And, um, and guess what? None of the executives that actually approve purchases ever wanted to look at our portal, right? Our portal was only for the security team.
Yeah.
The security team needed to try to figure out, how do I take this data and report it up to the executives,
Yeah.
right? And the business decision makers. And those folks all work in like Power BI and Tableau, right? And that's where they see the data. They never wanted to look at our portal. And so then our customers would have to like manually like copy and paste data points into a different data space where it was useful to report up to their management. Same thing on the at the actual security report side. We generate a security report and we tell the security person, okay, go take that to your developers and have them fix these things. And you give a security report to a developer and they freak out. They start getting very defensive. Oh, no, that's not really a problem. And they start debating every little issue. And and it doesn't follow their, like, they're already in these different sprints, or whatever whatever the development cycle is. Right, nowadays you don't really do sprints in the same way, but whatever. They would build it in, they already had tasks and a schedule that they're trying to follow as they're pushing product. And all of a sudden you throw something out of the cycle into their path, and they get very defensive. So what we started realizing is, okay, we need to report up into Power BI and Tableau for the executives, and we need to push the security issues, report them as bugs in their Jira or whatever they're using, right? Because if it just shows up as another bug, they don't get so freaked out, and the product manager can actually, like, schedule it into their times, right? And as we started to understand that that was a better path, we got less friction, and we started getting more buy-in. So on the VR side, same problem here. Right now, some content developers will build their own portal sometimes to, like, show all of the scores, if they're even doing any data collection. Most aren't even doing any data collection, because a content developer who's, let's say you're building, I don't know, frog dissection for a school, right? And so their virtual frog dissection. Do you really want to host a server to track scores? And, like, the school is not going to, especially if it's like a K through 12 and they have minors, you got all these, like, security compliance issues around the privacy of the student data.
Yeah.
And so you're not, the school doesn't want to put their data on your system.
Yes.
And you don't want to host a cloud server to store all this stuff and then do all the security and go through IT security audits and all this stuff. That becomes a real problem. So then what you do is you just, like, okay, we're going to display the score to the student, and then the student has to tell the teacher when they take the heads off, oh yeah, I got an 87 or whatever, right? And it's like, you can't confirm it, but you got, right, whatever. The systems aren't all hooked up.
Yeah.
Education already has tools. They have LMSs for, tracking grades.
Yes.
The district offices, or like statewide, they want data up into Power BI and Tableau.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't seeing that in a consistent model. So that's what we built Inform XR for. And it's now called Arbor Insights. We built the bridge. So we built some really easy SDKs that you can add to your project. And the idea is we handle all of the LMS integrations. We handle all the security of the data and the secure platform, right? Again, I've been in cybersecurity for a long time. So we set up a platform that allowed us to get a real secure environment, SOC 2 compliance, GDPR support, all these different things. We can handle all of those security issues so that content developers don't have to do this for themselves. And if you integrate with LMSs, there's lots of different LMSs out there. And so, some different content developers have tried to integrate with one LMS or another, and they're like, okay, I can support Moodle, but I can't support Canvas. And so, and you're having to build it distracts VR developers from building good content.
Yes.
Because they're trying to then spend time and energy figuring out all these LMS integrations, figuring out how to get into Power BI. We try to resolve all of that for everybody and normalize it. And that way also, if you have a lot of different, if you're a school and you get content from different content developers, you're not logging into, 5 or 10 different portals for each different product, right?
Yeah.
We kind of centralize it. And that was really the focus, because what I had seen, again, going back to cybersecurity, is when everything's siloed, right? And so let's say you have 5 different developers with their own data environments. It's hard to learn as an industry about what works, right?
Yeah.
And in cybersecurity, we had this because we had silos. Each product of cybersecurity, we're like collecting people's vulnerabilities, right, for companies. And that's very precious data you had to really protect. And so a long time, we couldn't even host this in the cloud. It took a journey to get us there, where we can prove that we could securely host it in the cloud and have web-based solutions. There was one company that did this early. And what was fascinating is they started to at one point, a couple years into their business, they started releasing an annual report. And what they were doing, because customers would come to me and say, like, how am I doing? And I would look at their data and be like, well, from what I could see here, we would look at different. You have this many vulnerabilities. And one of the things we'd find is this time to fix. Okay, from the time we told you they had a vulnerability to the time you fixed it,
Hmm.
that was 8 months on average.
Oh, wow.
And they'd be like, is that good or bad? I'm like, I don't know how to compare it, but it feels bad. This seems like a long time to be vulnerable. And you know it, right, this whole time. Um, but we didn't know how to compare. We didn't know what good looked like,
Yeah.
right? And so I anecdotally would kind of know, but White Hat Security put out this report, and they took all of their customers
Hmm.
and they did it by industry.
Yeah.
And they would say, okay, in retail, here's the time to fix, here's how many vulns they had, here's the time to fix. Banking, whatever. They had all by different markets. And it was pretty interesting because what we saw in there is we got to data. I remember going back to that same customer and saying, like, okay, your time to fix was 8 months. Your retail average in retail is actually 15 months. So you're doing pretty good. And he's like, that's good. I can go tell my boss we're better than average. Like, still feels bad, right? But what we learned, what was even more amazing about this journey is that we saw in there some companies that were doing it in weeks. And we're like, whoa, what are you guys doing to get vulnerabilities fixed in weeks? And they started sharing what they were doing. We'd invite them to security conferences to speak and share what they were doing, and found that they were kind of shifting their testing to very early in the cycle, and it was easier to fix things very early, which made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so we all, as a whole industry, started shifting our designs to working better in that model. And it affected how we built products. And it's really a big reason cybersecurity and applications are more secure today than they were 10, 15 years ago, because we've learned, I want that same journey here in VR. I want to be able to, in a year, 18 months from now, out of Arbor, we want to release reports that talk about good programs and what we see as the markers of successful programs based on real data. By having so much data collected across application, many different applications used by many, many different companies and schools, we want to be able to start showing what's working, what actually works empirically, right? What data proves that these programs are working? What are the indicators? So that everybody can start getting better, and we can really start to fine tune what is successful and prove it, so that, because then that's how that's how, like, people who are deciding where to spend money, they're going to need that, right? So that they're not, some of us are comfortable being on the bleeding edge, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody is, but if they start to see that it's proven, then it's less risky and more people will jump in.
Yeah, yeah, I do agree with you. And I think VR, the interesting things for VR in education is that first, not many, because I'm in community college, California Community College. Right now I'm working for Chancellor's office. Yeah, and my vertical is spatial AI. So right now we were like my personal project, I'm creating professional development for faculties to learn what's spatial AI. And we look up a lot of different device software, what to teach, helping faculties to turn their curricula into immersive experience to gain engaging. Yeah, we review a lot of different tools. And at the end, we decided to go with Meta Horizon World Editor. Why? Because it's accessible. If you require VR headset, oh, you see, like I saw a lot of big street. They don't even have even one headset. And I was like, hey, VR has been around for a very long time. Why? Because there's no need to use. So that's why this street doesn't have any budget. So it's interesting that the professors recommend why not start with 2D. Even Dreamscapes. Dreamscapes is one of the, they contract with a lot of higher education for the immersive experience. When they sell the entire device. They even sell a table, chair, and a joystick on the table, and Vive headset. They sell like a entire tools kit. I was like, why not just having a developer create a bunch of um apps and install on the headset, and you don't need to spend like $1 million to buy like a 10 tables with all the stuff. And I said that if you are purchasing a table, it's impossible for a student to bring the table at their dormitory or home. It's not remote or online education. It's like a dedicated little arcade. Yeah, it's not really. So that's also my argument a lot about a lot of VR right now. And the one that currently that California Community College is using, I personally think it's great, but it's like a 1 million, a couple of $1 million per one app, and everything needs to be so customized. It sounds not realistic, and nobody will have, unless you are district or regional, you don't really have that budget. It's more like a gold, like a jewelry you put there, and for a lot of, leaders to feel like, oh, this is good, and we purchased that, we are innovative. But actually implement to student, it's impossible. So I agree with you that having more like a, for example, like working with Meta, right? You get the Meta headset, and teachers can really remotely adjust. And for example, right now I'm turning professors curricula into immersive experience, and later on the professor said that later on you need to buy headset and install for us. Otherwise, you see, just onboarding is crazy. Onboarding
Well,
remotely through Zoom. Yeah. So
even with your example of like they don't know if they need a headset and they want to do 2D, I think this is a great point because I see a lot of developers that are building, let's say they build in Unity, and Unity can compile down to WebGL,
yeah,
right?
right.
Or desktop, right?
Yeah.
So we actually built our SDK to go anywhere Unity can go, right? So our Unity
Oh.
package can be built to WebGL, can be built to desktop, VR. What you want to do in those scenarios is collect the data, measure, like, how much time are they spending in there? How long does it take them to complete tasks? Like all the things you would measure in ed tech, right? It matters a lot. Even time tracking of like how long did it take them to accomplish this, right? Because sometimes they'll gamify things. They'll just keep false, how many attempts did it take? If they're going to gamify it real quick, they're just going to fail until they get it right, right?
Yeah.
If you start tracking these things and you're able to see like, okay, we have most of our users using 2D, fine. What are their outcomes? Versus if you're also collecting exactly the same metrics, but in VR, are we seeing stronger outcomes from the VR users and their retainment as they go back and retest, or, is the retention better? If it's not, then maybe you don't need VR.
Yes.
You can't even figure that out until you're measuring.
Yes, you need to know, because a lot of professors just said that why VR? If 2D, like a Steam game, you see like a lot of people like gamers. Why, like, I remember I got asked in one question. You see like the VR game is $49, right? And Steam game, the highest AAA game is like a 49.50, Resident Evil, is that very high price. It's about the same price. And gamer ask, um, in Steam game, it's very premium experience, and the storytelling is so good. I'm so immersed, right? And there are so many, like, so much easier for me to control. Why should I buy a VR game? And it's much shorter, and sometimes I will get stuck, right? And yeah, it's like VR game is not better than Steam game. And
No, but it depends on the application, right?
yeah.
Because if a piece of what you're trying to learn
Hmm.
is about experiencing it
Hmm.
more firsthand,
Hmm.
there are things I think where VR is just fundamentally better, right? It's a
Hmm.
different experience watching an video and being in the video, right?
Yeah.
And so some things really matter, um, and some may not. But it's hard to judge that if we're not
Hmm.
doing data collection and then
Yeah.
analyzing the data and the results,
Hmm.
right? If you're not measuring, you're 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 not able to make decisions, quite honestly. And so that I think that's really one of the, like, for me, that's a big driver of what I'm focused on is we need to help folks measure so that you can make good decisions. And
Mm.
and then the other thing is trying to get people to understand to do it early as possible. Start collecting from the very beginning, because you can never go back and collect data where you didn't, like you can't go get data that you didn't collect, right? And so
Yeah.
we really try to push people, like, do this during your pilot. Add and we give folks that are doing pilots, we give them free access to the Insights product,
Mm.
because we want them to use it
Yeah.
to start collecting, because that's, if they don't collect then,
Hmm.
at the end of a pilot, they go back to their,
Yeah.
decision makers, and they can't prove with data anything.
Yeah.
They're not going to get funded to scale.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
I'm like,
Agree.
start collecting data. We'll give you some free access when you scale, and it's meaningful. Then okay, well, there'll probably be some billing, but we really want to focus first on getting past that pilot and really scaling up.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Like right now for my professional development, we will open for some pilot. Like when I recruit the faculty, I said that we are we are looking for the professors who are willing to try. Because I even did the survey. Have you heard of XR? Do you know XR? And it's all no. Like the entire I saw the data from my the survey. It's all no. And I was like, wow, this really need to be trained. It's interesting that we keep saying VR, and yeah, I think I think it's yeah, we still need a lot of work, and also yeah, I think Arbor XR really helps, you know, uh, the multiple headset management, right? Okay.
Yeah, well, and again, if you're not, even if you don't want to use the Arbor Insights, for example,
Mm,
I just want people to start understanding, like, start collecting data from the beginning
mm,
so that you can have it and start measuring.
mm.
If you don't do that in the beginning, uh, and you're already in the middle of it, then add data collection now. And also, by the way, if
Mhm.
you are tracking data, this is the other thing I want to leave with, especially since you work in schools.
Mm.
You know how central the LMS is to so much of the activity that goes on, right?
It's like
And
everything based on Canvas, right? And if
yeah,
you see the student engagement, no matter how engaged, it's always 30%. It's like why I thought like you guys should read more. Sometimes students just jump into the assignment and without even read the whole thing. I don't know, maybe it's the era that student has less passion. But anyway, it's not the best
but
solution. Yeah.
But here's the thing is, and this is the other thing I try to do, is if you're going to try to replace an existing solution, so let's say you have some old video series that they would learn from, right?
Mhm.
And you're going to replace it with some VR experience.
Mhm.
Figure out what metrics you were recording
Mhm.
in the original content.
Mhm.
And then when you do the VR one, try to measure the same things along with everything. You could do extra stuff with VR, but at least measure some of the baseline so that you can compare.
Mhm.
So you can compare how their retainment and engagement was on the videos versus the VR, right? So it's not just uh, new content. You can take old stuff, right? And and then make sure the data from VR gets back into the LMS so that people could see side by side
Yeah.
what are these results.
I agree. Yeah. So for example, like you know Canvas, right? How hard to use it's not hard, but it's just like how hard to integrate Canvas with VR. Usually, for example, for Dreamscape, they only do the 2D. Now the VR version is like, oh, VR version $1 million for 10 headsets with a lot of tables. It's like I don't think it's necessary, but it's crazy. And the other one is the 2D one. You can access through a link and go to WebGL. And I was like, why spend $1 million just to create like a bunch of 2D stuff? That I don't know. I don't see any maybe a little bit value, just some games, but the game I don't even feel is very engaging. So anyway, so I think that there are a lot of things that we need to change. Maybe teacher create their own curriculum on their own. Maybe, and quickly text prompt and create a lot of different experience, try it out. I don't know. I'm still like thinking about how can education and the AI and also immersive engaging experience can be implemented in education. There's no answer and everything's experiment. So
Yeah.
yeah. So we will find out. Yeah. So what's the one thing that you still like to share that we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go back. I think for me, I think that because of where the XR space is, and it's still a lot of hobbyists and experiments and
Yeah.
like VR champions. Uh, Again, I had this same thing in cybersecurity. We had a lot of we had people that were hobbyists in hacking and they were passionate about it and they were like the security evangelist in their company.
Mm,
Um, when we started acting professional
mm,
and looking at data
mm,
like the business does, uh, we started maturing up. And but I think the VR space needs to do a lot of the same thing. We need to start measuring
mm.
so that we can prove return on investment.
Yes.
We need to integrate with the systems that exist. So if it's in a school or it's an HR department that's doing training, the data needs to go back into those LMSs. The executives are going to measure out of Power BI and Tableau. That's where they're going to compare data. They're going to be able to see like, okay, they did safety training in VR, and that location, I see a year later has less security incident or safety incidents than the other locations that aren't doing the training. When they can see it and they can see that they're saving money
Mm,
and they're getting a return on investment, we will get more budget in the VR space. But
mm.
until you're really proving these things, we're not going to scale up. We're going to keep dying in pilot.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so that's just I want to continue advocating, like collect the data. Let's measure the way the business thinks about this and not what like Bob liked it when he tried it, right? And Susie thought it was really cool. Like that's not going to get you more budget. We need
Yes.
measurements. We need measurables.
Yes, I totally agree. And the interesting thing is that the AI, right? I think in for AI already make a lot of professors feel uneasy. And ed XR, they would go crazy. So I feel like it's interesting that we saw education is a very inspiring, field. It's actually do, but for in education and when I've been in education, higher education for since last February, yeah, 1.5 year, and I started realize that higher education is in technology wise is really behind. So yeah, so I think this is also an opportunity for us to figure it out. How can we really get into this field and really use the technology to help professor? And yeah, I'm trying like a one by one.
Yeah.
Hopefully, can make some changes. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. We release episodes weekly. If you enjoy this conversation, check out our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Support us by giving us a follow and a 5-star rating, or subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Thank you and see you next time.